In 1964, Nelson Isekeit was a young man in Cincinnati in a dead-end job, looking for something interesting to do with his life. His childhood friend Bob Moak had been an acting fellow for 2 years at the Cleveland Playhouse and suggested that Nelson look into a position in the box office. So Nelson took a train to Cleveland and interviewed with Lenore Klewer. She asked, "What's the least amount you can afford to work for?" and then hired him on the spot as box office assistant at $70 a week for 50 hours of work. Under Lenore's tutelage, Nelson learned the rigors and responsibilities of serving the best interests of CPH. She instilled in him enormous respect for the Board of Trustees, the men's and women's committees, the volunteers, and, of course, the company. For Nelson, Lenore was an inspirational mentor. He became the closest of friends with Lenore and her husband, Emile, sharing dinner each week for years. When Lenore retired after 33 years, Nelson continued to phone her each night with the box office reports. Nelson followed in Lenore's footsteps, becoming box office manager and then the business manager. When he arrived at CPH in 1964, the operating budget under artistic director K. Elmo Lowe was $450,000. When Nelson retired in 1990, under artistic director Josephine Abadi, it was $7 million. Over the years, other very special friendships developed. Nelson recalls with particular fondness the years when Harold Fallon was chairman of the board. Harold would stop in the office every day of the week except Sundays on his way downtown and ask, "Oh, what's new?" Nelson would respond, "Since yesterday." Harold would return in the evening if there were problems to discuss. Maintaining a balanced budget was a huge, long-term priority, eventually earning CPH a substantial Ford Foundation grant. Elijah Ford and Nelson became long and dear friends over the years. Always the first two people in the building, they would meet each other at the old carved bench in the lobby, share a cup of coffee, and discuss problems of the day, both of CPH and the world. Pat Eversole was trained by Nelson to follow in his footsteps. She remembers with fondness his ironic, offbeat sense of humor and how he loved telling numerous stories of the old days, helping to instill some of the same traditions of CPH's founders. Pat speaks of what a fine teacher he was and really how great it was to work for him. At the box office window, Nelson understood the importance of the personal touch, knowing the names and faces of all the patrons, the board, and the staff. As business manager, he was a fiercely devoted and responsible steward for the long-term fiscal health of the Cleveland Playhouse.